So just if recording's against you, if it steals your soul, you might want to get out now. All right, well, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. Some more people probably show up as they do, and that's fine. But we're gonna go ahead and get started. So there will be slides for the first half. I didn't finish them for the rest of it, but this is all about teaching improv, and we're gonna cover kind of
I haven't
five.
seen it first like I understand it. Really? No, my
Sorry, what?
parents lived a very
Oh, if you got background noise, go ahead and mute yourself
Oh
if you don't
yes,
mind. I
yeah,
appreciate
of
it.
course.
Thank you very much. I'm good, but I get distracted very easily. Anyway, everyone should be seeing my screen, a little green screen with motivation, modeling, marketing. Everyone sees that? We're on the same page. I'll take your nods as an absolute yes. Excellent. So I kind of broke up today in 5 categories. We're about motivation, modeling, marketing, leadership, and then Q&A. So I hope you have questions. If you don't have them now, hope you have them by the end. Please write them down, and then we'll check in for questions, specific questions as we go for each little part here. So motivation on why to teach. I'm guessing that because you're here in my class, you're probably pretty cool and you have great motivations for teaching. However, I've met some people in my life who teach improv for what I would consider not the best reasons in the world, right? Some people, especially like struggling actors and improvisers back in the mid 2000s in Chicago, would teach just because it was a paying gig, right? And if you're an improviser, you know there's not a ton of paying gigs out there, and you think, I can make a little money. I can teach a class, and that's cool. I got nothing wrong with money. I use it to survive, like most of us probably do. But I know people who like that was their main reason for teaching, and that gets a little problematic. Also, even worse, status. So again, probably doesn't apply to you, but back in the mid 2000s in Chicago, the improv scene was a big old high school, and everyone wanted to be a popular kid. So teaching was a way to kind of be elevated above just being a performer. And then some people were just like, well, I'm good at improv, so I should teach it because I'm good at it. Okay. And then there's this idea of, well, I'm good at improv. Where do I go from here? Oh, teaching feels like I'm moving upwards. And for me, all these things, and they're probably obvious to you, they don't make for the best teachers out there. And I'm not telling you why you should teach. You maybe already have a super strong why you want to teach. But things for me that have helped me sustain me over 16 years and still want to teach more is I love being the person who gets to foster connection. I love it when people meet. We've already had people like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. Like you're seeing each other because of this moment right now. You may know each other, maybe not. But like I'm helping foster connection just by creating this class or any class I teach. And so are you by any class you teach, right? I love it when people support each other. I'm a big fan of that. I talk about it every time in class. And my class is foster support. So that helps motivate me. I like fun. Big fan of it. If you're not doing it for fun, I'm not sure why you're improvising. I love creativity. I love it when people surprise themselves, play a character they haven't played, tell a joke that they're like, oh man, that was a really good joke, things like that. And then just turning lights on. And that's probably one of the main reasons that motivates anyone to teach anything is that moment, not just the moment, but all the moments when people start to get it and they get better. And you see these students on day 1 versus day, week 6 or, start of the year versus the less latter part of the year, whatever, and you're just like, oh man, I'm seeing improvement, and I was a part of that, right? So I don't know why you teach, and it's none of my business. But I'm telling you, as a teacher, if your motivations aren't really strong, you're probably gonna have a hard time getting through it and having any joy out of it. So basically, there's 2 characters of improv teachers. You got your hired guns and people who are on your own. So I've been on my own for a little over 2 years now. I was a hired gun forever. I worked for Comedy Sports, Second City, blah, 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 all these places. And if you're a hired gun, that's awesome. A lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today is doing stuff on your own, but it can absolutely translate to both. Some of the advantages, obviously, of being on your own versus working for someone else is if when I worked for Second City, I didn't have to market, I didn't have to collect money, I didn't have to do any of the administrative things. Right? I just showed up when they told me to show up, taught what they told me to teach, and then I was done. And that was cool. You get to all the fun parts, just the teaching, right? Of course, the disadvantages are you don't get to set your own schedule. You teach what they teach you, tell you to teach, who they tell you to teach, all that kind of stuff, right? So if you're on your own, or even if you're working for someone else, you still model a lot of what you do on like what you've been taught before. right? So essentially, we're all amalgams of the others that have taught us, and that's super okay. When I first started teaching, I was a lot of Pat O'Brien because he was my favorite teacher, a little Rachel Mason, a little Bill Arnett, a little bit of different things going on there, right? Like you could point to any exercise or any explanation or just about anything of me and go, oh, that's so and so, or that's who, if you really knew all these teachers, because that's who I was. I was just an amalgam of them. And if you're just starting out, or if you haven't started yet, just be an amalgam of your favorite teachers. That is your best way to start. Like, oh, I really liked teacher X did that. I really like teacher Y do that. That's how you start with your coming up with. It's just like stand up or any creative voice. You start out by taking on others, and then you have your own voice. And with modeling, I think a lot of people think of teaching style, which is awesome, but there's also what is your business model, right? Who are the ideal students that you're trying to teach, and how are you trying to reach them in your marketing, right? So at first, you'll probably just do what others did. Again, super okay, but you'll get creative as you go. So I want to talk about marketing for. Let me stop before there. Any questions or any check-ins, anything about anything so far? Chris says 2 thumbs up. Great, excellent. Okay. Stop me if there are any. Stop me if there are any. How about that? Hi, Shirley. Oh goodness. Okay. Anyway, so we're gonna about marketing because about 2.5 years ago, marketing was my least favorite word in the English. Well, maybe not my least, but it was on the list of words I hated. I was like, I'm not a marketer. I don't like to sell. I don't like to do any of that. And then I didn't meet. I started reading words by a guy named Seth Godin, who's you know anything about the marketing world, he's big in there. And he talks about permission marketing. He talks about being a generous person with marketing. And he defines marketing not as advertising or anything sleazy, but as its original definition, which I didn't even know, which is anything that touches the market. So a great example of this is if you remember back, or if you're not old enough, way back in the early days of the internet, Yahoo was the big kid on the block. Like everything was about Yahoo. And Yahoo's, if you went to a search engine on Yahoo at the time, their homepage had like 150 plus links, and companies would pay to get their link on Yahoo's homepage because it was like the homepage of the internet back then, right? And then Google came along and they had 2 links on their page. You could search Google or you could I feel lucky, right? Those are your 2 buttons. And as Seth defines it, those are marketing decisions, right? It's not about how they advertise. Google didn't run Super Bowl ads or anything like that. They had a very different interface than Yahoo. And so it was a marketing decision to go, we're just going to clean it up, make it nice and simple. And that was part of the thing that helped them become Google, right? So anything you do that touches the market, how long your classes are, the titles of your classes, all these things, they affect the market and who's going to be interested in them and how they, what kind of students come to you, that kind of thing. So for me, marketing was something I used to hate, and now it's something that I kind of love. And I'll be very vulnerable and admit that I have no more slides because I did not make anymore. I was rushing to make them at the last minute because that so is brave. How I tend to roll, right? All right. Hey, everyone. Oh, man, we got a full class up in here now. Very nice. So anyway, so marketing, the thing about it that I really just want you to take away is that you don't have to be sleazy. Marketing is not about like, I'm trying to get people to sign up for something they don't want to or something they're not excited about. It's about bringing something to the market that would make people excited. How do you do that? Who knows? You risk it. You try it, right? I'm going to, like, Nicole owns a theater, right? She doesn't know exactly what's going to make people. She's like, I'm going to have an open mic tonight. I'm going to have this, that, right? If you're running a restaurant, what you're serving attracts different customers. So when I'm talking about marketing, I'm talking about all the things I do as an improv teacher that my students appreciate. So one thing I do is email recaps. I've done this ever since the beginning. I send an email after every single class with bullet points of what we talked about. It's not super exhaustive. It's not forever. It takes me about 20 minutes or so to write every email, which is a lot of time, and it can get annoying. And again, if you're white knuckling it and you're like, I'm just doing this for a paycheck, you're not going to do this kind of stuff, right? This is because you care about your students. You're going to take the time, that kind of thing. Because I've been told by hundreds of students over the years. Oh man, those emails are so important. And it's not just about the recaps. It's about you're literally giving everyone everyone's email so that they're a group. They can contact each other. And I tell people, I'm like, look, once I email you, you can just hit reply all and go, I'm going to a show next week. Who wants to come with me? And start to forge those bonds, things like that, right? Or, hey, you've got a sketch show coming up. Hit reply all that email and tell us about your sketch show so we can come check it out if you want to, right? So one of the big things that I love about the class I have now is that when I started in pandemic, we all remember good old March of 2020. I was teaching for the Second City at the time. At the time, Second City had 3.5 hour classes. We had a maximum, supposedly, of 16 students per class, even though I definitely taught a couple classes with more and knew people who taught upwards of 20 in a class. The classes were, I don't remember how much they were, but they're pretty pricey. And when we went online, Second City didn't change any of that. Now, this is not me here to disparage Second City or anyone else. That was their business model. They were like, we like this, we're sticking with it. Cool. A lot of my students, and I only had one class at the time, would email me personally and be like, are these classes, now that they're online, are they going to be shorter? Are they going to be cheaper? Are there going to be less students? So I emailed all the people at Second City. I was like, hey, here's what I'm hearing from my students, your customers, the market. And I never heard anything back, right? So I started my own classes, which were shorter. They were 2 hours instead of 3.5. They were cheaper. I maxed the students out at 10 per class instead of 16. Big difference, right? All those were marketing decisions. And when I like this workshop, it's more of a lecture type thing. We could have 100 people in here to be fine, right? But I've got like a long form master's class that's on Mondays right now when Shirley's in it. And I maxed it out at 8 because I was like, we're just doing long form for 2 hours. I think 10 might even be a little crowded. So I moved that down to 8. Now, as if I'm just in it for the money, right? I go, oh, 20, 30 students, as many as will pay me, jump on in here, right? But then it dilutes the product. So I'm not telling you how many students to have in your class, how long to make them or anything. I'm just saying those are all decisions that you get to make and they affect your market. In addition to things like that, and I meant to have this pulled up, but 1 second. I'm going to show you something that I had a student very recently tell me they loved this aspect of my teaching that I had never done before online. And now that I've done it online, now I also do it in person. And I'm going to share my screen real quick. 1 second. All right, this is so silly, it's ridiculous. But for 14 years of teaching, whenever I was running any particular exercise, however many people were in it, I would just say 2 people up or 4 people up or however many up, right? They're all sitting down, 10 students, whatever, just 2 people up. And that, it worked fine. But what I didn't realize was that I could also be in control of how many students or which students go with which people. So these are matrices that I made. I think that's the right term for them at least. And depending on how many students show up on any given day, which is never necessarily the number of students who are enrolled, which happens all the time, right? So if I have 8 students, then I'm just like, okay, I just type their names in here, Bob, Mark, and then I'm just going to type a bunch because then what you do is, well, I don't need it there, but you go, okay, Bob and Mark up first, and then I highlight that, and then I just turn that red, right? And then I go, okay, A1 and A2, you up next. And then blah, blah, blah. And then that kind of, and I just move on from there. And that way, I'm, depending on the length of the class and what exercises you're doing, we may not get everyone paired with everyone, but no one has to make the decision, oh, do I want to go up right now? Do I want to go up, like I've already been up with this person, something like that, right? So everyone, it makes it just super even. And I had a student recently tell me that like he loved that about that because it took the guesswork away from him on, should I go up now? Have I been up too much? All that kind of stuff. Again, not telling you to do that, but like that was just something that I happened to do online. I don't even know why I'd start doing it. And I'm like, why the heck wasn't I always doing this, right? Again, stop me with any questions. Other things that I've done. Yes,
Rich,
Margot.
can you share your expertise on that with the student that's teaching? Like help them create a chart or whatever like that. That's awesome.
I can just send you this chart.
Okay, that's better. Thanks.
It's really easy. Yeah, I'm gonna send this to. I'm going to send an email recap to this class as
Okay,
well,
great,
and I'm
great.
literally going to send you a link to this, and you can copy paste it and put it in your own thing and take it away.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure. Yeah. It's real simple math. It was actually kind of fun for me to make. It was like Sudoku, like, oh, one here, two here, da 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 da. Yeah, ridiculous, right? Good question, Margot. Donna.
I will double down on that, saying from a student's viewpoint that I always liked it when they said 1 and 4, 2 and 7, or whatever, so you really didn't have to get in your head about, well, I want to go up with that person, so I'm going to wait till till they're standing up. And I think it's more experiential to improvise with everyone in the class at one time or the other, because it makes you a better improviser.
Couldn't agree more, Don. Absolutely appreciate that. And not only that, but like when I was just like whoever up, what would inevitably happen? I'm sure you've all seen this either from student or teaching point of view, is that the same students would come up first, and the same students would want to come up last. And I would notice that, and I would be like, okay, Rick, you're not allowed to go last anymore. Or like some of you who might have. Sure, I don't know if you remember, but like I was teaching this, I was like, okay, thanks for going up first, but we're gonna let someone else go first this time, right? And that's fine, but at the same time, these matrices just take all that out of it, right? And it's like, oh, this is just a numbers thing. We're just moving it along. And I love that other that teachers have done that. I'd never heard of that before I did it, and I was just like, oh, this is eye opening. Sidebar: hearing Donna talk about that, like this is as teachers. We should all be talking to each other more. I felt like an island almost my entire teaching career. And it's ridiculous, right? It's like we're each other's resources. We're not each other's competition. We're each other's resources. I happily share when Michelle Gilliam has a class coming up, when Kat Kenny has a class coming up. Like if people I know who are great teachers, I'll share their stuff. Be like, hey man, you should check out this person. I'll tell them to my students. Because I really do believe the more we connect, the more value we're going to bring to everyone, right? As opposed to like, oh, she can't have my student. She's my student. You can't teach her. It's like, that's ridiculous. Michael.
Oh, yeah. I have a question regarding your matrix. Were you able to fill up those matrix by the end of your class? Like everyone was able to.
Okay.
Yeah. The answer is probably not. It's pretty rare. Let's say that I have an 8-person class right here. It's pretty rare that we're going to do 7 2-person exercises in a 2-hour class. Maybe. Sometimes, like if I have only 6 students show up or 5 students show up, I mean, we'll run through this matrix 2 or 3 times. It's like one we'll go with 2, and then we'll do a 6, and then we'll be another exercise, and we'll go, okay, now we're back to the first column. So it really just depends on how many exercises you have, how many students you have, and how much time you have. But I'm not super worried about filling out the matrix as much as I am just making sure that there's an order to things and that people know when to go and that kind of stuff. Does that speak to your question, Michael?
Yes.
Thank you. Shirley?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Shirley?
I loved what you just said about teachers supporting other teachers and, improv instructors, which is ironic because I just had this conversation an hour ago with Shad Kunkel. And he was making the comment that, I gave them my notice I'm not going to be working with that class act anymore, but he was talking about getting different directors and you don't always have to do the same. And he said, we support each other. And I said, that fits an improviser's concept of entertainment. It's a team effort, never a one, like you're not in it for yourself, you're in it to be supportive. Yes, and each other. So I
love it.
That's what that you yes and each other in all areas.
Yes, and you're gonna have to teach me about that someday. I love it. And
you
Chad Kunkel's great. Chad and I came out. He's a great guy. And quick story. If you don't know TJ Jagodowski is, he's a fairly well-known improviser. Back in the day in Chicago, I don't know if he still does this, but he would only coach teams for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
He would give you 6 weeks of rehearsals, and then he'd move on, right? Because he didn't want to be someone's perma coach. He just was like, I'll help your team out for 6 weeks. And then he'd move on because he believed that you should always be getting new coaches. Right now, surely there's
Yes.
advantages to having a steady coach and this, that, and the other. But when I coach a team, I will go out of my way to find like, okay, I can't go this week, so let me find you a really great guest instructor to give you a totally different perspective and give you new ideas. Right?
Right.
That's great. Charlie, appreciate that. I see another hand, Margot.
Yeah, I'm a psychotherapist, and so I do a lot of applied improv. And I live in a community that's just bathed in therapists, okay, Naples, Florida. Anyway, so I send notices out about my classes, and therapists don't want to send them to me because they think they'll leave their practice. They don't understand it as an adjunct to their, their own therapy for their patients. So that's one of my, but I'm really interested in marketing because something I'm doing isn't working.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk marketing all day just because, but my if I can only give you one answer to marketing, it's read Seth Godin. He's literally written 20 books and a million podcasts and a million everything, and he's taught me so much. But we're swimming in it, Margot. No matter how old anyone in this room is, the U.S. economy and mostly a lot of the world economy has been about competition, cutthroat, cut the other guy, get as much as you can, all that kind of stuff. And I really do believe, I hope at least, that is a model that is slowly fading out. And as improv teachers, we never had to be a part of it. We just felt like we did because we were swimming in it. And that's probably why therapists think that and all that kind of stuff. Sorry to hear that. A few other things on just marketing decisions. So most of my classes right now are what I call weekly play groups or fun groups. They're literally like, you go do, taekwondo once a week, or you have a bowling team, or you have a knitting club, or whatever it is that you're like, this is a fun 2 hours for me. And what I found out is that a lot of my students, people that were coming to me, weren't necessarily wanting to go through levels and graduate and go through a whole program as much as they just wanted to come together and just practice, support, have fun, and do a lot of laughter. And I love that. So that's how my business, not the only thing I do workshops and different things, but a lot of my ongoing classes have this model that maybe existed before, but I never knew about it, right? It was always about levels or workshops. And it's like, you can make whatever business model out of improv works for you. And maybe you'll create something that no one's ever created before, and it'll be like, oh wow, this is awesome. I'm taking Michael's class and it's this new thing, or Margot's got this blah blah blah, or whatever. Get creative. That's what we are, right? We're creative people. Free stuff. If you know anything about marketing, it's all about free, right? I have free jams, usually about once every couple of months. I'll let people drop in for free. If you've never taken a class of mine, the first drop in's always free. I have students who've taken with me a bunch, and I'll just be like, oh, you can drop in this week for free. I got the open space. No big deal, right? That generosity there. I'm not saying give everything away for free. You should value yourself and your time, and people like to pay for your time. But at the same time, free stuff really helps. It helps get the word out, like this class, for example. Right? And then for me personally, there was always this, and again, maybe not where you came from in whatever your improv journey was, but in Chicago in the mid 2000s, there was this very big separation between student and teacher. Like if you were taking someone's class, you weren't their friend. You didn't hang out with them after, or very rarely. At least that wasn't the case with me. And when I started teaching, I would always go out for drinks after the last class. Always. Because why wouldn't I? I've spent so much time with these people. Now we can kind of let our hair down, metaphorically speaking, and just hang out. And then I would always tell my students, what are you doing? What are you got a sketch show? You got a storytelling show? What are you doing? How can I support? And I love to go to people's shows and different things like that. Again, you don't have to do this as an improv teacher, but it is how you market. Is are you the kind of improv teacher that will just show up on the day and they never hear from you again? Or are you the kind of improv teacher that actually is interested in more and oh yeah, let me, I'm following you on Instagram, whatever. You're part of my life in some way. You don't have to be best friends with them necessarily, but I care about my students, so I care about what they have going on. Cool. Just real quick on Instagram. I'm not an Instagram expert. I'm not a Facebook expert. I'm not a social media expert, YouTube expert, anything like that. But I use these platforms not necessarily as the way they want me to, but as just a platform to point people to. And I would highly recommend that unless you're just a real whiz at Google Analytics or whatever, that don't waste your time trying to play the social media game, because it's a bit, you're not the customer, you're just being used by them. Like, use them instead of them using you. Okay, so that's a lot on marketing there. Any other questions, thoughts, marketing related? Chris says major thumbs up. Fantastic. Okay, great. Cool. I want to talk about leadership here for a little bit. So again, we've got different levels. Some people have taught a lot. Some people may have never taught. One thing, a big eye opener for me, I was never necessarily an alpha person in general. I was always like, well, whatever you guys want, just in life, right? And when I started teaching, I realized quickly that your students want you to be in charge. They want you to be the alpha, other than be like, no, here's what we're doing. We're doing this, that, and the other. And at Second City, we used to do labs. So at the end of 3 hours, we do a 30-minute lab by performing for another class, and they'd perform for us. And one of the first times I taught in these labs, I was like, who wants to play what? And it was chaos. And what I learned was like, just tell them what's going on. If someone has a major problem with it, you can deal with that. It's like, I don't really want to do this. Okay, fine. But that's pretty rare in my case. In fact, extremely rare. It's like, lay out the exercises. What is it that you want to accomplish for the day? Feel free to modify that. Feel free to do whatever. But I used to do you call it. And I'd be like, all right, it's a you call it day. What game do you want to play? And I had a student very thoughtfully, very kindly said, I want you to call it. And I was like, talk about a light turning on. I was like, oh, that's part of my job, is taking the thinking away from this. They don't want to have to care about this. They just want to throw me in, coach, let me play, kind of thing. And again, maybe the kind of students that you attract aren't necessarily like this, but it's reading the room, right? As far as leadership goes, I'm a nerd, so I'm going to say you're the dungeon master. You're not in control of everything, but you provide the options. You limit, the narrow paths with which people can go down. So I overplan. So let me just bring up a random, I'll bring up my Monday class real quick, and I'll just show you. Again, I'm not telling you that you need yours to look like this at all, right? I'll make this a little bit bigger here. Great. So this is, I have a Monday class, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Margot and Shirley are both in it. And most of my class sheets, every day of class has a different sheet. And so as you can see here, here's our warm-ups. So in 620, last week, we did one sentence advice was a warm-up. We did a stream of consciousness characters warm-up. And the week before, we did join poetry. And you may not know what these words mean, it doesn't matter. But the point is this is my little system for making sure, I don't want to try that on for size because we just did that a few weeks ago. And so I log every warm-up we did under warm-ups. Then I have a game exercises thing, and I log every one of those. So that way, when I'm looking for how to plan this week, I go, okay, all this stuff is recent. I don't want to bore them with stuff they've already done. So what stuff they haven't done in a while? And I look down here. Or I look for things that maybe haven't done in this class at all. And then I end, again, this is how I do it. I end every class with a joke game, a one-liner game. Those like 185 or B-movie or things like that. So then I list those differently. So then I've got all these games that I can change it up, right? So then every day, so I do 4-week cycles. So like these are the 4 weeks that are coming up for the Monday class. And then I have the dates here, and then I just list underneath. So like here's 620. Here I start every day with a song. There's a song we started with. Here's, and I'm actually going to put this in the chat here in a second. This is what I say before every class. We're here to support each other, make each other look good, not to be funny, but to learn, practice, support, and have fun. Don't plan ahead, be present, celebrate failure, or try some shit and learn from it. Right? So I say some variation of that at the beginning of every class. Then I have my warm-ups, my exercises, I do announcements, and then I end it on a joke game. And then another thing I do is throughout the class, and my students can attest to this, is anytime some little line of dialogue or word or name or something really tickles me or tickles everyone, I write it down in a little memories section. I have no idea if anyone reads this, but at every email recap, I put a little memory section in case someone wants to just remember the punchlines, remember the hits, right? So this is just how I do it. And this literally goes back to when I started this class, which was 6/29 of, so July 29th of 2020, right? And every class is logged in here. And as you can see, like at first I did a little bit of not near as much. And then now I do a lot more information because I realize like, oh, I should log in who shows up every day and who doesn't, and who's a guest and who's actually in the class, and what games were planned that I didn't do versus, oh, we only got 3 people in this one or something to that nature, right? So I overplan and I keep super stringent records to make sure, because of the model that I have, that I don't, repeat things too often. If I was just teaching, let's say, a leveled classes and my level ones all look the same like they did when I was in Second City, I wouldn't necessarily need to do all this. I might do some of it, but I wouldn't need to do as much of it. So again, depends on what it is that you're doing, what you're running, that kind of thing, right? If you're running your own shop or your own theater, making hard choices, and by hard choices, I mean lines in the sand that you just won't cross. So I have a big thing, and anyone's taking classes with me, I have a no shithead policy. If someone shows up at my class, they're unsupportive, they take away the fun, insult people, use language, anything like that, they're out. I can't wait to refund them, even though I don't like sending money back, but I can't wait to get them out of my class, right? I've been very lucky because of my marketing. I don't attract many people like this. But if you're a teacher, who are the students you're not willing to teach? Like, what are the behaviors that are not okay, right? And just owning that and being like, look, someone may not like me if I draw this line in the sand, and that's okay. A lot of improvisers I know, myself included, love to be liked. And as an improv teacher, you kind of have to own the fact that you can't teach every student. Not everyone's going to like you, and that's okay. You have a brand, and it's going to fit maybe a lot of students or maybe a little, but it's not going to fit everybody, right? I just wanted to... again, I'll put this in the email recap, but those are that I literally say this, and Shirley and Margot and Chris could probably sick of hearing it because every class I'd say it, but I don't care because I want to make it abundantly clear. We're always here to support each other. I don't care if you're funny. I need you to dare to, like, these are things that are super important to me. So I literally repeat them every class. Keep records, talked about that. And then modifying and adapting, right? Like, it is amazing to me that we are improvisers, and that yet when people become improv teachers, I've seen it so often. Maybe you've seen it. Maybe you've done it. I know I've done it. Sometimes we become rigid in how we teach, right? It's like, oh, and well, I've always taught it this way. And it's like, well, there's a better way to teach it. Nah, teach it this way, right? I've seen it at theaters. I've seen it in classes. I've seen it all over the place. And if there's anything gift that I can give you, it's be as adaptable as a teacher as you are as an improviser, right? So I recently just changed a game that I played for a while, Wikipedia. If you ever played this game, the way I learned it was a group game, and one person's talking. Let's say that the suggestion is Empire State Building. So one person is talking like they're a Wikipedia page for Empire State Building until you say some word that makes Chris go freeze, and then they say whatever word you said. So you said New York, so they freeze New York, and now they start talking about the Wikipedia page for New York, for example, right? And then someone else is freeze, and then we go all over, and it's a fun little exercise. And in person, that version is awesome, and online, that version is clunky. And I don't even remember, I haven't played it that way in forever, but I started to play it that way, and people were like, well, when do I come on? And 4 people would come on at the same time, and it just didn't work online, right? So I changed it to where it's a 2-person thing now, to where there's only 1 person that can take over and back. So that way it's a lot clearer. And then recently I just updated a new version to where it's not even Wikipedia, it's character monologues, right? And who knows what the next iteration of this particular game will be. So I'm always thinking about new things. Students sometimes bring me games. They're like, oh, I learned this. And I'm like, great, let me take it. Let me see if I can find a version of this. Always be adapting, kind of thing, right? Again, stop me if anything. I'm talking a long time in a row, so I'll take any questions. I write curriculums for every class. And every class, I assume the number of students who are going to be there because that's the number who has signed up. And in every class, someone drops in who's like, oh, I need to make up a class. Can I drop in your Wednesday? Sure. Hey, 3 emails right before class. Can't make it today. Sorry. Like, cool. And then sometimes people no call, no show, which happens. And you're like, well, now I only have 5 students and I planned for 8. Right? So I over plan. And sometimes I'm literally like, I have no plan for this. Well, I'm just modifying on the spot. But that happens all the time. And you may have the most well-meaning students, but they are not perfect. They're not robots, and it's gonna happen. So just having that adaptability there, right? I had a Monday group for a while. It dried up. Couldn't get more students in it, so I dropped it. A Monday afternoon group. I had a Thursday night group for 2 years. I just ended that a few weeks ago because, again, just dried up. Who knows why? I don't know. I don't think it was on me. It was just like timing or whatever. And like now I have a Monday night class that I didn't have before. And for a while I got really stuck on, nope, these are my 6 classes. I teach these. My goal is to find students to fill these 6 classes. And it was like, no, I dropped 2, started a new one. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to teach more teachers. And like, so what is the thing that we say follow the fun in an improv scene. Like as a teacher, what's going to be fun for me? What's going to be fun for my students for me to create right now? And then lastly, kind of the big thing that I say to all my students when they're improvising, and I want to say to you as a teacher, is dare to fail. Dare to fail. I have absolutely put up an exercise, run everyone through it, and I was like, well, that just wasn't that great, was it? And like we all learned from it, but I didn't do it again, right? And that kind of thing. Or I've absolutely put up workshops that I was like, oh, everyone's gonna want to take this workshop, and then no one signed up for it. And then I put the same workshop up 4 weeks later, and it sold out. I don't know, right? And no one knows. You can't know. You just have to dare to fail. You just have to take chances. You just have to take risks. That is all the planned stuff I had to talk about. I had a lot to talk about. I hope you have a lot of questions because we have plenty of time, but I'll take whatever questions you have. Shirley.
How did you, I'm impressed with all of the homework you do and the organizational skills that you put into teaching. It's mind-boggling to me, and it's brilliant, I think.
I'll pay you the $5 later. Thank you.
Please do.
Thank you.
Did you just design these just because you have a good, brilliant mathematical mind and know how to use the programs on the computer and everything, or did you just find it during your years as an in-person instructor, or is this all new to you?
When you say design these, do you mean just my classes in general?
The ones that you're showing us, like the charts that you showed us, how you keep record of everything. Have you just done that since Zoom, since you've been on your own?
Yeah, as far as the matrices go, literally, like, I have no idea why I started them. It just made me feel like online it would be easier if I assigned who was in it than if I just said 2 people up. I literally have no recollection of why I started them, but once I started them, I realized like, oh, this is helpful. And I've done a few in-person classes in the last 2 years, not many, but I've done the same thing. It was just like, make a little matrix, just really write it on paper. And as far as making them, I mean, to me, it's just it's just Sudoku. It's just like one can't repeat itself in this line because you can't do a scene with yourself. So if Shirley's one, then she's the same with Chris, then Danielle, then Leanne, then Donna, right? And then that kind of thing. So I don't. To me, it was just if those are hard to make, don't worry, I can literally send those to you.
And also the way you keep records of what you've done, the exercises you do in every class, and how I think that's brilliant. I just am impressed with it all.
I appreciate that. It's evolved over time because as you saw, my records in the beginning weren't as extensive, and all I'm thinking is what's useful.
Right.
Because no one, literally, y'all are the only people to ever see that other than me, ever. Because, like my students, you don't need to see that. Like, you don't care how the sausage is made. You just want me to like bring the class, right? So I don't have like a model for these. I'm just like, oh, it would be. At one point, I realized it would be really cool, helpful for me if I listed who was in every day. So I keep attendance now, which sounds silly. I didn't do that before, right? Or things like that.
Well, that's
Chris.
I had a question in regards to like this is the curriculum or kind of the format or formula that you're using for yourself because you're solo teaching this sort of approach. Like, have you ever implemented, or is it really like different improv houses like Second City, like you mentioned? Were you ever able to have inroads in some things in terms of the curriculum and what they provided, or were you only teaching the curriculum they provided like what flexibility did you have between what your approach is to a given subject versus what the I guess the improv house or the comedy or theater house
Yeah,
would do?
the Improv Palace. I gotta find that place. It sounds cool. Uh, so I mean, I'd have no problem being super honest about this. Every time I was given a curriculum by Comedy Sports, Second City, Comedy Shrine, whatever, I looked at it, went cool, and did my own thing.
Okay.
Every single time, because all I cared about was the objectives, and
Mhm.
I'm an ego. I believe I'm good, and I believe that I know a better way to get you to certain objectives than a piece of paper. And I'm not being like, I mean, I guess I am being egotistical, but it's literally because I don't think one size fits all. And so if you took, if I don't know why you would, but if you took 3 improv 1s in a row of mine at Second City, uh, they would have all been very similar, but signatorily different because it was a different group of people. A group of 6 that I taught over a 3-day intensive would look a little different than 8 weeks with a group of 12 or something like that, right? If I had a group that was like really sharp and on it and full of characters and all that kind of stuff, that would be a little different than I've had a group of a bunch of shy wallflowers or a different mix or that kind of thing. I was given a curriculum, and rarely at any of those schools was it like bit by bit. It was usually like suggestions of exercises. But again, I was always an independent improv teacher and just worked for other people and didn't realize, oh, I should be on my own because I'm a stubborn
Oh,
asshole
so you're okay.
and want to do
Gotcha.
my own thing.
So you're involved from that perspective too. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Does that speak to your question?
Yeah, I think so. It was just something that I was thinking about from like, there's improv in DC. The idea was like, hey, maybe I could teach improv in DC through the wit in here, but I would hate to be in a spot where I like had all these different great ideas or different approaches to the curriculum, and they'd be like, oh no, this is the curriculum you have to teach, and sort of being boxed in that regard.
And it could happen. Like there are definitely theaters out there and schools that want you to go by the numbers, and that's fine if you're cool with that. But like, it just depends. Like if you want to be a hired gun, what is it that you want, and is the school going to give you that? Like you straight up ask when you're being interviewed to teach, like, how much freedom do I have? Like, that kind of, and be willing to walk away if they're like, we like it like this,
Right.
and you're like, oh, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so a bunch of hands. So I think the order is Nicole, Leanne, Donna, Breeze in that order. So Nicole,
Thanks. First of all, this is awesome. Thank you so much, Rich.
thank you.
Couple things. So my focus right now is I'm teaching little kids, 7 to
Nice.
12. And so that's really fun. I know I could Google and get these like curriculums, and my husband and I, Mickey, who you see in the picture there, we've been developing the curriculum. But do you have, and would you be willing to share as a community thing, like these are the best? Because I feel like I'm not really sure on which games would be best curriculum wide to like build for little kids and like starting. Would you be willing to share any sort of games or curriculum that you've already established that are good for little people?
Yeah. I'm happy to share anything you want as far as games, exercises, because whether I modified them, created them, or stole them, like I think they're all public domain.
Okay.
As far as kids are concerned, Nicole, I think there are people literally in this class that would be way more qualified to talk about kids than me, because I have not taught kids in 15 years.
Okay.
I made the decision a long time ago, and I think that's part of the brand, right? Is like who you want to teach, and I realized like, oh, I'm not a kid guy, and so I couldn't speak to it. But does anyone who else in here teaches kids that has some good stuff for Nicole? Donna does.
Okay, good. If you don't mind, Donna, I'll put my email into the chat. And if you feel like emailing me anything, that'd be wonderful. Anyone, I'll do that. And then last question is there a certain going appropriate rate for me as a comedy club owner to pay teachers to come in and teach? Like, I want to be really on the ball and pay them appropriately. And what do people pay now? What do I need to know?
It's a great question. I can tell you at Second City, so the last class I taught was in 2020, and I'd gotten a number of raises over the years. I don't know why I said that they were actual raises. But I think I went out with Second City making 36 an hour. And as far as the market's concerned, there are definitely improv teachers out there that would kill to make $20 an hour, right? But it's about quality and who you're going for. For me, as someone teaching independently now, and sees like, oh, how much work is being done that's not the teaching. I feel like I do more work outside of the classroom than I do inside the classroom. And I, as a teacher, did not realize anywhere how much work you had to do, like how much Second City was doing with all their people or the West Side or whatever. So, if you're teaching, I'll just put it out there. I think if you're teaching a 2-hour kids class and you pay $100, I think that's pretty great if you have it in the budget, right? But I get that as a theater owner, you probably don't have the biggest budget in the world either.
Right.
Who else has thoughts on that about paying? Leanne, you teach kids. Do you have any thoughts on that about rate of pay or anything?
No. The more you pay me, the harder I work, like the more time I put into it, preparing. But I don't set my rates. Like I guess I wish I
guess
no, I feel like I struggle with money.
Yeah, well, show me an improviser who doesn't, right? Chris, what do you got?
I was gonna say, I guess it would also depend on your market too, depending on where you're at as far as locality as well. Because I think, what you would charge in one area, the United States wouldn't necessarily warrant that as well. And then you probably do a market sort of competition, I guess, sort of figure out what the going rate would be in that local area and then see how your competition is in that regard as well, in terms of how you set up your rate.
And I'm Los Angeles, in case that makes any difference. Santa Monica.
And Santa Monica.
So I was figuring it's like you figure the LA area versus what the going rate is in that area versus, and then also too, if you're allowing, are you allowing, I guess, is the teaching primarily online or is it teaching elsewhere?
In person.
So so I guess you would probably, maybe you would do some, I don't know if there'd be some sort of analysis you could do to see what other folks in the local area are teaching.
Good.
You know what I mean? Like, are you the only one that teaches in Santa Monica children, or is there other places that would?
Yeah. So I guess the short of it is that there's a bunch of, if you want to do the market rate thing, right, which businesses do, and that's fine. But for me, Nicole, I would say that like, who are the teachers that you want, and like, what are their rates? Maybe just ask them, like, like, hey, here's what I got. I got a 10 students. They're 6 and under, or whatever. Give them all the things, and be like, what would you charge for something like that, right? Okay. That, and dare to fail. Like, what you charge, what you pay this year, you might next year go, well, I need to totally rethink that, right?
Okay.
I hope some of that helps. Margot, you had a thought?
Yeah. When I taught in real people and with kids and adults, it was based on the number of students that actually enrolled, and then I got a percentage of it, which based on what Rich said about it, I got paid pretty well that way, actually, when I had a nice, good sized class. But I don't want any more than 12 in my classes either. It's 10 is really the most I really want. Maybe I'll take 12.
What was your percentage? That's a great idea.
Well, I guess it was like, let's see, what did I get? I guess it was 60-40 and 70-30 in some cases.
Which one was?
I would get the 6. I got the 60, or I got the 70. Yeah.
Okay.
And this theater didn't do a lot of marketing. I had to do my own marketing, and you'll be providing good marketing for it. And it was a stupid place. Okay. Stupid place. I love what you're doing. That's great.
Thank you.
I do think that is a good point. Like, are you marketing it? Like, are they going to have to fill the classroom?
No, it's me. I'm doing all the work. They just need to show up, but they do need to bring the curriculum, but I'm going to give them the space, and all the work will be done. They just have to show up and be amazing.
That's great.
And that is worth, a significant amount of money. It's a lot. It's like Rich said, it's hard to do that other stuff.
Yeah, like if you're telling a teacher, all you got to do is show up, bring the curriculum, and then at the end of the day leave. Like, I say, like, you can go, okay, how much is the marketing worth? How much is the space worth? How much is this? And then maybe just do like an analysis of like, okay, the teaching feels like it's this much percentage, so I can devote that kind of thing, right? And then, asking someone to bring in a curriculum is also, that's part of it, right? Of like, are they have to write it? Do they already have it? That kind of thing. Is every teacher bringing their own, or is one teacher write a curriculum for all the other teachers? That kind of stuff. I've been paid to write a curriculum for things that I didn't actually teach in because people just wanted me to come in and like help kind of guide the teachers and then get out of there because I would have charged more than those teachers. So they just brought me in to teach them. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Great questions. Leanne, you had your hand up?
Yeah. Uh, hmm. So I'm teaching, this is like, I guess was specific, but I have a friend who's very good at, who books a lot of commercials, right? And she's teaching commercial acting workshop, but she's so freaking successful that she can't always make it. So I teach half the time. That's improv great. For, you know, and it's like what they need is improv in order to audition. Like, I feel like what I'm teaching them is to be able to play, to trust. I don't know. I guess, you know, how do you do that?
So like, I had a lot of students. I think I got it. So I had a lot of students at Second City. Like that was a phenomenon when I came to LA, is that students would come not because they cared about improv, because their agent sent them, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't know the LA market, that is a big part of it. Well, my agent said I needed Second City on my resume. Right? I heard that so freaking much. And I would tell students straight up, I'm like, look, I'm happy to teach you improv. And like some of it will translate, but the kind of improv that they want for your commercial auditions is insta writing. It's not improv. You're not playing with people. You're you're literally writing part of the commercials for them. And that's what they want, right? So I would reverse engineer it, and like, you're a great play improviser, but you're a smart and creative person. Like, think about what is the best commercial audition and what are the tools the improv tools that people need to help get that, and kind of reverse engineer that. Does that speak to what you're talking about?
Yes.
Nice. And we can talk more about that specifically, because I've taken and taught improv for commercials as well. So we can talk about like details that offline. Okay, great. Donna, do you have a question?
No, I was just going to share that I had taught school Scrabble in the schools for like 20 years. And I found that the teachers would talk with me and we would figure out, or they knew their students really well. And I would come in and do the presentation and get it started. But they would figure out that they could then take popsicle sticks with their names and they could pull them out and they could say whatever name they wanted because the kids couldn't see it, and then put it in the jar so that they could pair the shy person with the outgoing person, or the nerd with the volleyball, phenomenon, the whatever. And they found that by varying it up a lot, it helped the social skills involved. And I found the same thing in improv. If people are randomly paired, kind of, and once you know their strengths, then you can adjust that. But I like what Viola said. If she said, if your student has a problem, don't try to fix them. Invent a game that fixes the problem for them.
There you go. I love it.
Where they have to be louder, or they have to show more emotion, whatever it is. But you don't say, oh, I challenge you to do that. You just say, today we're going to do the exercise, and this is how it goes. Boom. And then there's nobody's on the spot, and it works really well. I just wanted to share that.
100% agree, right? Like I put in exercises very specifically for certain students of like, oh, I think this is going to help someone. It's going to help everybody. But I'm like, and I don't tell anyone, and I don't need to, right? And it's just like, it just all comes out in the wash. And by the way, if anyone happened to be like, who's Viola Spolin, and you want to teach improv, highly recommend you check out her work. She is literally the godmother of all of this stuff that we do. Breeze, you had a question or a thought or something?
Actually, a comment. I very much appreciate the email that I get from you the day before the class that has the link for the Zoom, because it's very easy for the link to get buried in emails from telemarketers, and sometimes it's hard to find. And also with live classes, I appreciate those kinds of emails because then it gives me a chance to just check my calendar and make sure I got it on my calendar. And there has been a time when it's been like, oh, what? How did that not get on my calendar? Oh no.
Sure.
So logistically, I think that those emails the day before are very useful.
Thanks, Breeze. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, it may sound like, oh, just sending an email, but like it takes a little time and effort, but I send an email at least an hour before. That's the latest I think I've ever sent it. But I usually try and send it the day before and be like, see y'all tomorrow, just because, and I'll literally have students who like, oh man, I totally forgot we had class yesterday, even though I sent an email before and all, and like it happens, but I try and do everything I can to help it not to happen, but it'll still happen. I really appreciate that, Breeze. Thank you. Margot, I saw a hand there.
Yeah, well, I totally think you're brilliant, and I just love you and adore you. But how come she's getting 5 and I'm only getting 3? I don't know about that.
Who's getting 5 and what?
Shirley's getting 5. You said you told me I would get 3 for saying compliments. Never mind.
I'll give you 10. I'll give you. It's a bidding war.
Give me a 10.
I'll give you 10 theoretical improv dollars. Shirley, 20. Margot, 500. Excellent. We'll go back and forth.
This is good. This is good.
Yeah, I like this. So, since I've been teaching on Zoom, of course, everything's changed a bit, but I have classes that are based on donation, and I would like to make a little bit more money. Okay. That's more money. So like I'm trying to get ready to promote a 6-week class. Now I use Facebook. I have somewhat of a mailing list, MailChimp or whatever. And I use, all the stupid LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, but there's something I'm missing somehow. Either my titles aren't sexy enough or maybe I don't know, people hate me. But so I wanted to ask that question, but I also wanted to promote that I have a podcast called Improv Interviews, and people like Carol Sills, who's married to Paul Sills, and Aretha Spolin Sills. I have a lot of improv history on I just put it in there. But so I don't know, I just need more help in figuring out how to do this so people actually sign up, because I'm not confined to just Naples, Florida, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. Yeah. And like, here's the thing about marketing. Nobody knows how to fill up every class. I don't. No one does, right? But what I'd say is, you're any knob you can adjust. Try to, if you're like class title, sure, you can adjust that, right? The look of your marketing, sure. But to me, the thing that really gets me more so than anything is the hard stuff. It's like when Shirley tells someone about my class, or when Breeze sends forwards to someone, like that's the biggest thing ever, right? So if you've got a 6-week class coming up, tell everyone tell everyone, send it to me, I'll reshare it, all that kind of stuff. It's your network is going to be your biggest platform, as opposed to any kind of marketing or anything like that. I wish I had a better answer for you, Margot, because if I did, I would sell out every class that I put up, which would be amazing, but I don't. And I'm always struggling to get, I mean, that's just the name of the game. Like, if you want to teach improv, you're always trying to, if anyone has the secret, I beg of you to tell me. Please, please, please. Who else has ideas for Margot in here, what she can do? Shirley?
Yeah, well, I just think what you said, it's like word of mouth, and be willing to, don't be embarrassed to keep promoting yourself. And I think that's the drawback, is that you'll think, well, maybe I'm not, maybe you don't want to, but be willing to just put it out there. Hey, I'm doing this thing. Good one, Breeze. Like, show the book. Be willing to share it and share yourself and say, hey, I've got this really fun thing that I'm doing and I want to let you all know about it. Just get that attitude. And like, I get so excited about Rich and Breeze's classes that I tell people, you got to come do this. I tell my friends. So, I mean, and so just, Margot, just be willing to be more available, I think.
And I think I would say, Margot, is that
write a book. Write a book.
Write a book like Rich did.
Oh, it's a lot of work, guys. It's a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie. Like, if you want to, go for it, but it is a shit ton of work. And Margot, the other thing is, if you have students who already take from you, ask them, what's a class I haven't offered that you would like? I'm teaching a long form class on Mondays right now because a student of mine was very generous and reached out to me. She'd taken class with me for 2 years and stopped. And she said, I just really am not into the weekly fun classes anymore right now, but I'd love maybe like more long form or something advanced. And I just hadn't thought of that. And I was like, great. I put it on for her and it sold out. Like, and I'm not saying it'll always sell out if you do that, but like, it's, your students are your best resource. What is it that you want to take, right, Breeze?
I think there's also merit in taking other people's classes so that a broader spectrum gets to see what your particular skills are. And then sometimes people like from taking your classes, sometimes people have contacted me or whatever, or somebody said, well, that was really cool the way you did that. I go, I have some exercises that can teach how to do that. And that way you broaden your base of potential students.
Absolutely. And free classes too, right? I'll find a team and I'll be like, hey, I'll give you guys 3 free coaching sessions, right? Or I'll ask a fellow teacher, I'm like, hey, do you need a sub? I'll jump in for free just to get my face and name in front of your students and get more people out there, right? Chris?
I was going to say, is it Margot? Is that how you pronounce your name? As to say, you have background in psychiatry or therapy, is that what you said? So the only thing I remember from marketing class that I took like years ago, like the common line was create the need. Like marketing was always about like creating the need or like sort of selling you not like you want this, but you need this. So I was just thinking if there's something where somehow there's some way to spin or market what you're doing to say like you don't want improv, you need improv. That's the only thing I could think of, especially thinking about the community that you're in Florida. I was wondering if there's a way where you're like, hey, the world has a lot of troubles that you could do to say maybe you need improv to help you overcome some of the challenges of the world. So that's what I think about it in terms of that way. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. And some people do need improv. Like everyone in this room does, right? But like it's a niche market. So, we're not playing to the masses. We're playing to this much, and then only this much of this much is interested in any one particular class, right? This has all been super great, y'all. And if anyone in here, so I sent an email yesterday, and if you didn't get that, that means I don't have your email. So if you want me to have it, put it in the chat real quick so that I can get it. But I'm going to send an email recap about stuff that we talked about today. And if anyone has any more in-depth stuff, and if you want to talk about commercials, or Nicole, if you want to about like whatever, like teachers or exercise or whatever, talk to me, and we'll find a time to just meet the two of us, and I'll help you out any way I can. All right. Yeah, I think and then but I'm going to send this email tomorrow with a recap and everything. And yes, I'm selfishly going to put some pay classes on there for teachers. That's just if you want them. I'm going to have some specific niche workshop classes that are like more intense for different things. This is more of a general overview there. Any final thoughts, questions, comments before we get out of here?
I guess one quick.
Daniel.
Will you be? Do you teach classes on how to teach corporate? I'm sorry, I had to bop in and out so much because my computer just isn't working. But maybe you already covered that. But
I did not. I didn't talk about corporate stuff today.
Easy Luxembourg.
What?
Easy Luxembourg.
Yeah, what about it? Is she here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and mute that. But if you want to talk corporate stuff at any point, individually, I'm happy to. But I didn't cover it at all today. Yeah, okay. Margot.
I just want to thank everybody that was here today, and let me kind of hog time and ask the questions that are most important to me, because anybody that likes Rich is a friend of mine.
Yes.
Bless you. You're all amazing. Thank you for being here. I'll send that email tomorrow. Have a great weekend. Bye.